Let's kick things off. Hey everyone, welcome to today's webinar, Managing Test Reporting in Xray for Compliance. We're very excited to see you here today. A lot of people joining to talk about test reporting. My name is Francisco Viana. I'm a product marketing manager here at Xray. And today with me, there's Aaron Morris, founder of Agile Innovations Tech and expert in helping FDA-regulated software teams to modernize and develop their process while complying with industry regulations. And Rina Neer, CEO of Radby. Rina is a specialist in helping medtech and pharma and financial institutions to leverage Atlassian tools to achieve regulatory compliance and operational efficiencies. It's very exciting to be here today and bringing these two experts together. I really think it's going to be a great session today with a lot of insights and a lot of lessons to be learned. So we chose this topic for today because we understand that regulatory compliance is key for many organizations, especially if you're in the life sciences or financial sectors that are heavily regulated. And it's a very cumbersome process sometimes to do extensive testing, but showing evidence as well, which is mandatory, by the way. We'll dig more into this later. But it can be very time-consuming, tedious, and often very chaotic to organize all of this information. So we're here to give you a few pointers on how to do this better and how to be more efficient. So to sum up, today's goal is to show you how Xray helps you simplify compliance processes by providing evidence end-to-end traceability and testing, end-to-end traceability of your testing activities, and it provides you with built-in tools to generate audit-ready evidence with less manual effort, saving you time and money. We'll also show you different methods of organizing your information, both using Xray as well as snapshots from Radby. So in terms of agenda for today, we'll start by going straight to the point and coming up with a consensus of what is compliant reporting, what does this really mean, and we'll dig a bit into some of the differences between heavily regulated industries such as finance or life sciences. Then we'll show you how to prepare test data for compliant reporting using Xray issue types and how to create links between information inside Jira to have this traceability that I was telling you about. Then we'll show you how Xray supports audit-ready reporting, and we'll give you two examples, one from the life sciences side. This will be Aaron, and in the financial sector, Rina will take the lead here. And then we'll finish up with a Q&A where you will have time to ask all your questions. There's a Q&A space here. You can put up your questions during the presentation. We'll make sure to address them at the end. So yeah, Aaron, you can take it away.
Great. Thank you, Francisco. Okay, so this will be as much of a live demo as possible, but we are going to go through a few slides before we get there, just to make sure that everyone is starting from the same spot. So we want to first talk about what does compliant reporting really mean, right? So we're going to spend the entire time talking about this, but let's make sure that we all have a common understanding of what it is that we are talking about. So to answer that question, which I will answer in just a moment, the way I like to think about this is to think about the two basic concerns in compliant software testing. And then we can talk about, well, what is compliant software testing reporting? When you're doing compliant software testing, your two main concerns, number one, doing the right testing. That's your first concern, which is testing the right things in the right way. This is a very broad topic, and many of the people here have dedicated their entire careers to learning how to answer those questions. We're not going to get into that so much in this presentation because we want to focus on the second concern, which is not just doing the right testing, but then proving that you did the right testing. Because the first concern is something that all industries should care about. Most industries do care about. Anybody that invests in a testing tool such as Xray cares about testing the right things in the right way. But only regulated industries, highly regulated industries, really need to be concerned about proving it to an auditor. And so that's what this is about. That's what this webinar is about. It's about how do you prove after the fact, whether it's while you're releasing the software or it's years later, how do you prove that you did the right testing? So now to answer the question of what is compliant reporting or compliant software test reporting, it's being prepared to show the receipts, being prepared to show an auditor exactly what you tested and when you tested it. But this isn't very actionable, so let's do a slightly better definition. So let's be more specific. Compliant reporting, as it relates to software testing, is showing objective evidence. Objective evidence is a very important phrase, especially in the life sciences industry. It's showing objective evidence of what you tested, how you tested it, when you tested it, who did the testing. These are all questions you must be able to answer for an auditor. And more than that, it's what were the results of those testing? Were those results acceptable? And who reviewed and approved those results? And I think that last bullet is sometimes something that can trip us up during an audit. So this is what compliant reporting is. It's being prepared to answer these questions to an internal auditor or to an external auditor after the fact, after you've done the testing, after you've released your system or your software version. And these particular criteria, if you're in the life sciences industry, where I spend most of my time, these come from the general principles of software validation and the computer software assurance from FDA here in the United States, which is generally accepted across most regulators. So how do we actually answer those questions? So in this webinar, we're going to focus on 3 test reports specifically: a software test summary report, a requirements traceability matrix, and a test execution details report. We're going to show you these in the system. We're going to show you what they look like, how you can get them, and how you can set up your data inside Jira and inside Xray to make it easier to generate these reports. We're going to focus on these 3 reports for 2 reasons. Number one, in arranging this webinar, we agreed that these 3 reports are the most fundamental and the most universal across companies and across regulated industries. Certainly, your company has additional reports that you have in your checklist that you produce. Those are good reports. We're going to focus on these 3 because they're the most universal, the most fundamental, and also because if you believe in the Pareto principle, the famous 80-20 rule, these are the 3 reports that are going to help you answer a lot of questions during an audit. You're going to get through at least 80% or more of your audit questions just with these 3 reports. So that's what we're going to look at. You'll notice at the bottom, 2 of the reports are labeled as release time reports. One is labeled as an on-demand report. We'll see what that means in a little bit, but that basically means that the first 2 reports are things you're going to generate while you're releasing your software version or your system rollout, and you're going to save them for later. You're going to route them for approval, save them for later. And the last report, the test execution details report, is just something that you're only going to generate if an auditor asks you to generate it. Okay, so now we want to take a brief sidestep and do a comparison of the 2 primary industries. There's lots of industries represented in this in the audience, but the 2 largest are the life sciences industry, pharmaceutical, medical device, et cetera, and the financial and finance tech industries. And I'm going to pass this off to Rena to talk about this briefly.
So I thought it's kind of important to show the difference in the 2 industries as a result or in the context of the timeline of regulations. Because to be honest, as Aaron mentioned, we all want to do good testing, but about collecting the evidence, this is something we do only when there's a regulatory framework that obliges us to do. It's expensive, it's a significant overhead to the operation, and so on. So if we look at the life sciences, the history of regulatory framework that obliges a certain rigor in the documentation goes back at least to 94. And since 94, there has been a whole myriad of regulatory extensions and additions that forced more and more rigor. And I just picked several of the big landmark regulations to make the point that we have been here for ages, even back from the day that everything was in paper binders. So we all, not all, whoever is old enough in this industry had the experience of collecting test reports in paper binders and having offices full of binders. And then we carried that over to the electronic age with 21 CFR Part 11 and so on. So there, we had time as an industry to mature, to learn, to evolve, and to accept that as a fact of life and ingrain it into the culture of the organizations, definitely into the culture of the big organizations in this industry. Finance, if we look at what happened in the previous century, the main concern was know your customer and anti-money laundering type of regulation, which is comparatively light to what is happening now ever since the global financial crisis. So as all regulatory framework, they evolve in response to actual problems that occurred. And the global financial crisis gave the big, was a big trigger for a lot of consequential regulations that came after that. And just to mention, there was even the DORA Act came into effect in 23, became now compulsory very recently, and is still part of the rapidly evolving landscape for finances. So when I look at customers in these two areas, it's clear that the culture of this type of rigor in terms of collecting evidence, having signatures, having test documentation is behind life sciences, and I think that is because of the difference in the timeline. So I think that if you look at Aaron's presentation today and you come from finances and you think, oh no, I'm not sure we need to go that far, maybe consider because actually maybe that gives you a hint of what you need to be doing or how you need to be doing it eventually.
Great. Thank you, Rena. And the only thing I want to add, and we'll move on. So yes, life sciences, we've been here a very long time. We're used to collecting this type of evidence. One of the key takeaways I hope that you get from this as we move through it, though, is life sciences is also shifting towards the other industries in that we're trying to learn how to generate this level of compliance while becoming more agile. So we have a great deal of experience with compliance. We don't have a great deal of experience with compliance in an agile environment. And I hope that's one of the things that you see as we go through building this out in Jira, how you can align with agile methodologies, agile test methodologies, but still produce the objective evidence that you're accustomed to producing for the last several decades.
Thank you, Aaron. That
Right,
was an excellent point, indeed.
So let's talk about how are we going to prepare test data. Again, I'm going to show you this in the system, just leveling the playing field a bit. Those of you that are experienced with Xray know that Xray comes with a lot of issue types. Some of them are easy to understand, some of them are not. So I want to highlight the issue types, the Jira issue types that relate to Xray that we'll see in this demo. So we're going to use tests. Tests are test cases. They might be manual. They might be automated. We are going to show how you can compile all of your different types of testing, whether it's manual, automated, exploratory, into a cohesive test reports. But these are those are your test cases, and they're called tests in Xray. We're going to look at test executions. I skipped to the other side of the slide. Test executions are a collection of test runs for your tests. So this is where your actual evidence is stored, your actual test results. Those are inside a test execution, and the test execution might have a test run for one test or for several tests. And then we're going to use test plans. Test plans are not as frequently used. Tests and test executions are like the core issue types for Xray. Test plans are less used by many Xray users, but they're very useful for generating compliant reports. So we're going to make heavy use of test plans to get the right data into our reports. And all a test plan is it's a more of a single use planning item for planning your tests and monitoring your testing and reporting on your testing for a specific event. In an agile model, you're going to create test plans for your sprints, for your releases. In a less agile model, you might do it for your phases of testing, system integration testing, user acceptance testing, etc. So those are the three types of issues that we're going to be looking at. And then we're going to leverage native features in Jira that Xray can take advantage of to organize our data and make it easy to pull the data out into these compliant reports. First, we're going to link our requirements to our test cases. That's a necessity, right? Establishing your test coverage. And we're going to use Jira's native issue linking that Xray supports, using the is tested by test relationship. You'll see that. We're going to associate our test executions with our software release. That way we can make sure that the right test evidence gets pulled into our testing. To do that, we're going to leverage the fixed version field. The fixed version is a universal field in Jira. That's how you associate things with your releases, and you can use fixed version on your Xray items too, because they're native Jira issues. So this is how we can associate everything with our release through that fixed version field. And finally, we're going to ensure that we are associating our test executions with the software changes that are inside a software release. Because again, if you're using Jira, you're probably trying to do some level of agility. You're probably working from some sort of a backlog, whether it's a sprint backlog or otherwise. And so we're going to leverage sub-test executions, which is just a special kind of test execution, to make it very easy to associate your tests with your specific software changes, whether they're stories, bugs, features, however you label those in your environment. Okay, so, and again, we'll see all that in the demo, which is very soon here. All right, so how does Xray support this sort of reporting? Xray has a lot of built-in reporting features. You've probably seen them, and these are very useful for preparing for compliance, because Xray's native reporting is what you're going to use while you're doing your testing, while you're setting up for testing, while you're actively managing your testing. Very powerful real-time reporting capabilities inside Xray, and if you leverage them correctly, then your compliance reports will be correct when it's time to release. You'll have less work to do, I should say, at release time if you're doing an effective job managing it. But these reports, even though they indirectly support compliance through effective test management, they're not actually good for audit-ready reporting, because these are real-time. And for an audit, you can't have real-time. You need snapshots, right? You need a snapshot or baseline of your testing as it looked back when you released. An auditor might be asking about a software release from a year ago or even 5 years ago, which has happened to me in the past. So for the compliance part, instead of the audit ready part, instead of using the real-time reporting that Xray provides, we're going to look at two different solutions. We're going to look at Xray's document generator, which allows you to create branded reports in Microsoft Word or Excel. And then we're going to look at the Snapshots app that allows you to generate very nice no-code test reports inside Confluence. So if you're a team that's using Confluence and you want to manage your documentation and your audit readiness inside Confluence, then Snapshots is the best tool you can use for that purpose. And we'll show you both of these through this demo. Okay, so we're going to go through two demos now. I'm going to walk through a life sciences use case using Document Generator. Then Rena is going to walk through a financial use case using Snapshots, but I don't want to confuse anybody. I want everyone to understand, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, which industry you're in, either of these tools will meet your needs. It's just whether you want to do traditional document-based reports or you want to use Confluence-based reporting. Either tool will serve any industry that you happen to be working in. Okay, so let's look at those 3 reports that we were just talking about. So I'm going to bring up some samples and then I'll show you where they come from. So I'm going to start with the sample software test summary report. So this is a report generated out of Jira and Xray. You can see this is a Word document that can be converted into a PDF. You insert your logo, insert all of your company's, header pages and all the necessary boilerplate. So you can do this by creating a template. I'll show you what a template looks like in just a moment. And this is the primary report that you're going to use to answer a lot of questions about a specific software release. So let's pretend that we are auditors and want to audit this version 1.2 of this remote service and diagnostics utility. It's a fictitious application to support a fictitious medical device. And if you're an auditor and you want to say, well, how did this team test this software? Remember all those questions that we saw earlier? This report will help you do it. And the first, you're going to go through the boilerplate part where you describe, how you're testing. In this particular example, we tested this regulated software using an agile test methodology, in accordance with AMI TIR 45. And so that means we did testing at the story level. We did testing at the product level, sprint level, have a nice little diagram to show the auditor exactly what kind of testing we did at the different agile levels. But very importantly, so this provides great context for anybody that needs to understand exactly what happened. If you have a validation plan, which in life sciences you would, then a lot of this is going to be a sort of a snapshot of your validation plan. But now, very importantly, you can go through and pull out data from Jira into this document. So the way I have this, because this is an agile test effort, you don't have to be this agile, but just, as an example, first I have a section that shows all of the completed software changes that we had. So all of the new features that we implemented, and then I can show them exactly how each of these was tested, right? So we have, all of our documentation here. We have our the approval status, revision number, regulatory impact, and then we can come down to a summary of the individual test runs. So how is this particular story tested? Well, here's the test run information, right? What was tested? What was the test? Who tested it? When was it tested? And what was the result? Now, this isn't the detailed version of this test run. This is a summary version of this test run, and you can go through and look at all of these. You can look at all of the items in your release, all the stories, all the bugs, and see exactly how each one was tested. And then if you were to dig into any of the items, you just click in and it'll take you
Aaron,
into Jira.
we lost your share screen. Are you still sharing the screen?
I am absolutely still sharing, yes. Okay, let me stop and reshare. No problem. Should be a full screen share. Do you see
It's
Jira?
there now. It's there now. Thank you.
Yeah, I think when I exited the full screen of the PowerPoint, it is that when you lost me when I exited full screen of the
No, we
presentation?
saw the
Oh.
report,
Oh,
but
good.
then
Good.
I think when you moved back, when you wanted to show Jira, we lost you.
Oh, well, thank you for stopping it quickly then. Okay. So just clicking into Jira as an example, here's the actual story. This is an approved story. And you see, by leveraging a subtest execution, I can show the reporting engine very easily how to find the test runs for this story, because a subtest execution is just a regular test execution as far as Xray is concerned. But as far as Jira is concerned, this execution is a subtask of your backlog item, or of whatever it is that you're using to manage the scope of your software release. And so through this relationship of having a parent-child relationship between your software change and the test runs that tested that software change, and then all the summary information that you might put inside your backlog item, you can very easily, I'm going to switch back. Hopefully it works when I switch back here. You can very easily generate this sort of compiled report of showing how each individual change in this release was tested. Then you can also use Xray's test plans to show how you manage the higher level testing. So again, in an agile model, you're not just going to test at the individual change level, you're going to do more testing at the sprint level. And so we can have a test plan for each of our sprints and then show exactly what was inside each of these test plans. So what type of testing did we do at the end of sprint 5? It's right here. And Xray can pull all of this stuff out into Word with a summary of all the executions, all the defects. Here's our sprint 6 test plan, and then we can do a release level test plan. And again, these are just using a test plan object in Xray where you sort of build out your test plan in an agile fashion, and then you pre-approve that test plan right before you execute it. You do your executions, and then Xray can pull it all in. Now, how does Xray know that all of this stuff was actually associated with the version 1.2 release? Again, through that fixed version field. So my test plans, my stories, my defects, everything has this fixed version. And so then if I go up to my project in Jira and look at releases, if I go into this version 1.2 release, Jira has a list of everything associated with this release. And now the reporting template can pull through and see exactly what it needs. Which test plans does it need to have? Which executions does it need? Which backlog items? It's all associated through that fixed version field. And that's how you can sort of generate this nice report. And then, of course, at the very end of it, you document your deviations, create your conclusive statement about whether or not the results were acceptable, just like we said we need to show. And now you can route this for approval in your document management system, and you'll have this as long as you need it. Whatever the document retention period is for your software release, you have this test summary report available. And because it's in Word, it's mostly auto-generated. I'll show you how to auto-generate it in just a moment. But you can, you type in what you need to type in. You add in notes for for future reviewers. So people if anything requires an explanation, you just put that explanation right in this test summary report, and that way you don't have to be present for the audit if it happens a long time later. Whoever's reading this report knows exactly what you were thinking when you released this software. So that's the biggest one. That's the software test summary report. And how do we generate it? We just go to document generator and tell it to generate a software test summary report. And it's going to build it in that template. And how do we create that template? Here's an example of a software test summary template. So you can see how I have my branding. I have all this sort of template code. And at the end of this, we'll give you a link where you can download these templates in case you're curious, to tailor these to your own purposes. But you see, I have all my boilerplate. And then at the end of the boilerplate, I can tell it to sort of using this coding, all the Jira document generator is going to pass all those issues from my release into this report, and then the report just says, okay, let me pull all the stories, let me pull all their test runs out, let me look at all the test plans, and so forth. And we're not going to get into the details of how to read this code right now. There's plenty of documentation, and again, you can download this template for yourself using the URL that we'll give you in a little bit. Okay, so that's this is the biggest one, and you can see how you can answer a lot of questions using that report, using this report right here. The other report that we want to show is a requirements traceability matrix, which is much more simple, but also very important. The software test summary report is a version-based report. The requirements traceability matrix is a report that covers all your requirements for your system, not just the requirements that were implemented in that release, like we saw in the software test summary report, but all your requirements that are current in your system. What is their current status? So the best way to generate this is to do a filter for all your requirements, whatever this filter is going to look like for you in your environment. In my environment, I want to filter on my project, I want to filter on requirements, and I want to exclude things that are canceled or obsolete. Then I can just use the document generator button and generate a requirements traceability matrix. Just like that, press export, and when that generates, it's going to come up with this right here. Again, it's branded. It has boilerplate, much less than the software test summary report does. And then it gives me a list of all my requirements, what's their current test coverage, regardless of when that test coverage happened, and are there any unresolved defects associated with that? And you can tell the template to flag things, flag requirements with no coverage, flag requirements that are not approved, flag flag things that are failed, right? And have there's a failure with an unresolved defect. But this isn't just for this release. This is a point in time report of all my requirements at the time that I did this release. And once again, it works very similarly to the other report. Here's a requirements traceability matrix template. Again, you have your boilerplate, and then you say, here's my filter for all the issues in my filter, and just start to pull out all that stuff. And again, you can download this template for your own purposes. The last report, so you can see these two reports, you're going to answer a lot of questions. Most of the questions that an auditor would need to ask about exactly how did you test something, when was the last time something was tested, all those things, right? You keep a running list of your software test summary reports, you keep them archived and approved. So anytime a given release is audited, you find that software test summary report. Same thing for the corresponding requirements traceability matrix. But inevitably, a good auditor, of course, is going to say, well, show me some details, right? So if they're looking at the software test summary report, here's the example that we looked at, and they say, show me this test run. I want to see this test run. I don't want to just see a summary. I want to see the test run. This is where that on-demand report comes into play. And so go here. So let's say, we click into this test report here, and the auditor wants to see this specific test execution. Once again, during the audit, you can now use a document generator and create an execution details report, which will show that auditor. Let me show you an example. Here it is. This is not something that you pre-approve. This is not something that you're going to generate one for every single test run. You're going to generate this on demand, and it's just a audit-ready export of a single test run with all the details. All the details. Here's all the tests that were inside that execution. In this case, one passed, one failed, timestamps, and step level results, the actual results. And if there's any evidence attached, that evidence will be part of it too. Here's an example where my actual screenshot comes in. So here's that on-demand test execution report for when the auditor spot checks a specific run, you say, here's that specific test run and all the detailed evidence for that test run. So software test summary report, here's exactly how we tested our software release. Requirements traceability matrix, here's the status of all the requirements in our system at the time that we released, not just the ones that we implemented right now, and test execution details report if anybody asks to spot check any of your runs. All of this was through document generator. We're now going to look at snapshots of Jira data for Confluence. Getting used to the not so new name. I'm an old user, so I'm used to the slightly older name. And anyway, so I'm going to pass it off to Rena, where she's going to show you exactly how to do the same type of reporting, but directly in Confluence using a financial industry example, even though I love using this tool for life sciences as well.
Thank you, Aaron. So the first view I wanted to share is Confluence, because basically with snapshots, the pages in Confluence serve as your controlled document. This particular example is of requirement specification that has also the traceability report, and I'll dive into it in a moment. Here on the side, you see that we have the three equivalent examples to what Aaron was sharing, and I will take you through that in a minute. Now, one of the advantages of using snapshots is that you can generate traceability and the other reports that you need without having to code anything. Yes, so it's basically what you see here is the table, which is snapshot. It's a macro that we put on a Confluence page. And this macro uses a certain configuration that you set it up with. I will show in a moment how to do that, to aggregate data from Jira, copy that into Confluence, and display it as a table. So this particular table was taken a few days ago, and it stays like that, will stay like that forever until the moment that someone takes a new snapshot. And it shows the full traceability of how we build our data in Jira. So it has the requirements on the left side. For each requirement, there are the stories that are linked to that requirement, that they implement this requirement. Then the tests that we used for each of the stories to test the story, and the result of the test execution. So I chose here in this particular one to just show the latest test run. So just to explain that it can reflect one-on-one whatever hierarchy you have in Jira. I'll show you the hierarchy that we have built in Jira. So maybe I'll collapse it. These are 4 requirements. So we have defined inside Jira an issue type that is requirement. These are just examples of typical requirements that you will find in a lot of financial apps. Each requirement is then linked by 2 stories, or 1, depending how many stories you need in order to implement this requirement. And this is just a link in Jira. So I'm showing you a very fancy view that we generate with the structure app. But if you open the actual requirement, this is the requirement. It has 2 stories, and the stories themselves are tested by tests. And the nice thing about Snapshot is that it can aggregate the data based on that link as well and build this snapshot inside the page. And then you have the whole power of Confluence. You can add whatever verbosity you need to add before the table. You can even approve the page. For that, you'll need an extra app to take this whole document through the approval process, but it's totally doable and allows you to stay within Confluence. And of course, if you need to export from Confluence, there's always ways to export PDF from Confluence. Just very, very quickly, we don't have a lot of time, so I'll just show you a taster of how snapshots on this page were defined. So I opened the page in edit mode. This is the place where you can add whatever text you need before and after the actual traceability data. And then to define the traceability, we just added to the page the Jira snapshots macro. And the macro comes with the first level, and you could add how many levels of hierarchy you needed. Each hierarchy level grabs data based on a simple JQL. So whatever JQL you can use inside your Jira to find data, you can use inside snapshots. And you then define which fields you want to include in the table. You define the subsequent layers with a similar JQL, and you put it on the page. And from that moment on, you basically have the snapshot as part of the page with the data that you can refresh each time that you need to refresh the data. So this page, you can prepare it at the beginning of the project, and each time that you want to have an updated view, you take a new snapshot. It keeps all the snapshots that you take as part of the history of the page. So I can, for example, compare my latest version to a previous version of the snapshot and see exactly what changed. So this really is helpful for reviewers, because reviewers oftentimes are really interested only on the diffs that they have occurred on test since the previous snapshot was taken. So this is how you will build traceability with snapshots. The same principle allowed me to build here a high-level test report, which is basically giving me a list of all the tests that we wanted to have in this report, and against that, the test results, including the defects for that test report. And again, I can add whatever introduction and boilerplate text I need to add to it previous to that.
Hey, Rina, sorry
Yes.
to interrupt. I see that there's some people here that can't see your screen. Can you
I will stop and
stop sharing and reshare, please?
okay.
This has been on for like a minute.
Okay. Do you see my screen? I'll try again.
Okay, I can see your screen now.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I'm showing the summary test report, which again has a snapshot that is defined slightly differently. Just test and the test runs for a specific version. And the fields that I surface from the test runs, again, are for my discretion. And this is what these are the bunch of fields I decided to surface here. The last example is the one for the detailed test report. And that actually goes into the full details for everything that exists in the test run level. So this includes, for example, all the manual results for each of the manual test steps, the evidence, and since evidence usually in steps are pretty small, but we want to have them in a big way, there's always a section, there's also a section at the end that allows to, that accumulates automatically all the evidence into one big annex. Yes, so that's basically the functionality of the snapshots in regards to the integration with Confluence, with Jira, and with Xray. And the advantage of it is that instead of having Word documents and taking that into approval in a separate system, you have it all in Confluence. The second advantage is that each person from the team can define their own report and their own snapshot. There's no need for code or for coding experience. It's very straightforward once you understand your hierarchy in Jira, and that gives a lot of flexibility to the team. So I think that's the demo from my side, and I'm handing it now back to you.
Thank you, Rina, for the awesome explanation there, and for Aaron for the amazing insights you've shared with us so far. Just a few answers to some questions that have been popping up in the chat. Yes, the recording will be shared after the webinar, so don't worry, you'll receive a copy of the recording. And also, all of these templates that have been shared by Aaron and Rina will also be shared. Rina has also kindly shared her Confluence sandbox, so you can see what she just showed today. So keep an eye open for a follow-up
Not only
email
see,
on
you
that.
can see and play.
You
So
can
the
see and play even
sandbox
better.
is live, so you can even add data and add reports and so on.
Exactly. So just as we're reaching the final moment of our webinar today, just to sum up a few of the core ideas that have been shared here today. And so to be compliant is not only necessary to test, but you need to show objective evidence of what you've done. You need to have timestamps. You need to have, you need to know who tested, and that's only possible with complete traceability over your tests, how things are connected inside Jira, how your issue types are connected inside Jira. And not everyone has the same need of compliance. There are more mature sectors. There are other sectors that are still starting their compliance journey. But in the end, we can really learn a lot from different experiences from every sector. From the sectors that are more advanced, we can maybe have a glimpse of what's coming on in the future for our own sector. And as Aaron precisely said during his presentation, the life sciences is also learning how to do this compliance in a more agile methodology, and it's also learning from other sectors. So this sharing of information is very important throughout all the sectors. Using the test management tool, in this case, Xray, can significantly decrease the overhead of generating audit-ready reports. A lot of this has to do with this traceability that we were discussing. It's very important to keep things organized, to have specific issue types for every part that you're using, for the test plans, for the executions, for the tests. So having a tool like this can really, really reduce the heavy load of doing compliance reporting. Also, a good structure and linking between all the testing artifacts and requirements or other Jira issue types is very important for this traceability part and to report accurately. Within Xray, you have a lot of reports that will help you keep track of your testing as you are testing. And even afterwards with document generator, Xray allows you to download your templates and these reports so you can save them and that you can share them later for your compliance audits. And then finally, these two approaches that we shared. One, if you're not using Confluence, with a document generator, you'll have access to other documentation and evidence that you can save to then attestate for compliance. And if you're using Confluence, Jira snapshots that Rina kindly showed, it's a very good alternative. It's directly connected with Jira and Xray, so you can pull your information back to Confluence to then report directly via Confluence. So now that we reached the end of the presentation, it's time for some questions. We still have 10 minutes to answer a few questions, and let me just start by Anna that asked, our test executions could be linked to epic level instead of story level. I think Anna, Rina already replied here on the chat, and that's a yes. You can link any Xray issue type to both epic stories to whatever issue types that you're using. Those can be linked. There's a question here that might be also on other people's minds. Some people are not seeing the issue type requirement in Xray Cloud. This is the requirement by itself is not an issue type. I don't know, Aaron, Rina, if you want to jump in here as well. What is a requirement that you have spoken so often?
Yes.
Yes.
So, Aaron, you want to start?
Sure. I was just going to say that you're going to implement whatever custom issue types make sense for how you want to manage requirements. So if you're a life sciences company and you're managing a traditional specification, you might see the requirement issue or create the requirement issue type like you saw in my environment. That's the strategy I prefer. Some of my clients prefer to be more granular and they have separate issue types for user requirement, functional requirement, etc. But regardless, it's something that they create that's for the That's for a more traditional specification, and other companies like Reno showed in your part of the demo, uh, using just only stories and epics as the requirement, or you can use both together, which is also good practice. I think the point is that Xray will let anything be a requirement. Xray will let you test anything, and it's just it's the issue types that you choose to use for managing your
Thank you.
requirements.
You want to add anything, Irina?
It's basically people sometimes are not aware that they can define other issue types in Jira. So that is one of the superpowers of Jira, that you can configure the issue types and you can add requirements. You can call them user requirements, user need, user specification, whatever terminology works for your organization, you can define it. You can define the fields associated with it, the workflow. The sky's the limit really with Jira.
Thank you. Just for a little notice, I've seen a lot of questions popping up. If we don't have time to answer all these questions today, we'll make sure to give you an answer via email. So please keep an eye out as well for an answer to your questions. Another question that popped up is, I can't really follow the steps. Some people are not understanding how to find Jira snapshots. Just to clarify, it is not an Xray feature. So Rina, if you can clarify here these people as well.
Yes, 1 second. I need to be ready. I should have been ready with the listing, but here it is. So 1 second. Snapshots is an app that Radby developed, and it's found on where all the apps are on the Atlassian Marketplace. Snapshots of Jira data into Confluence. Note that for cloud, you'll have to install this as well as the extension to that app, which is a traceability extension, which specifically gives the Xray integration. But yes, for data center, everything is on this single app. So basically, it's available both for data center and for cloud, and you'll find it on the Atlassian Marketplace. Just look for snapshots of Jira data into Confluence, and it's an app for Confluence. It's not an app for Jira. That's a bit confusing. Xray is an app for Jira, but Snapshots is an app for Confluence because it works from Confluence.
Just so you don't need to worry as well, I will include a link to the marketplace to find snapshots in the follow-up email. So just pay attention to that email, and you'll have all the information along with the templates used today. Another question that we got is, can screenshots be added automatically as objective evidence on the document generator? Okay.
Short answer is yes. You can tell it to include the screenshots, like you saw in the example of the test execution details report. And then likewise, if you're doing a test plan report using the snapshots utility that we just saw in Confluence, Snapshots app, then it'll pull the test evidence there as well if you tell it to. From a practice perspective, usually you would leave that out of a test summary report, and that would be in your details report, like we showed.
Thank you, Aaron.
But yes,
And
the tool supports it.
perfect. Another question that we received is, how do we configure the templates which we can generate the reports with?
The best way is to start with somebody else's template, whether you're downloading from the template store. When you look at Xray's document generator, it has a template store. You don't actually have to buy them there, but you can download them and then
You can
tailor
grab them there.
Yeah, grab them there, tailor them. I don't know if we've shared the link yet for downloading the templates that we saw today. You can use the templates that I have for my environment and tailor them as well. But that's the best way to learn, is to start with a known good template and then learn how it works.
Yes, and I saw another question there about the fact that you cannot do that if you are not an admin. So the way to go about it, especially if you are in cloud, it's super easy to set up a small environment, a free Atlassian environment with an eval license of Xray. And there you have superpower. You can be your own admin, develop the template there. And once it's ready, it's easy to download it and actually ask your admin for the production Jira to install the template on your production Jira.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Rina, for the trick and tip there. Another user is asking, is the reports that are you showing today for all test types or only for manual test types?
All test types. We didn't have time to go into that in great detail, but to answer your question, because we are pulling data from test plans, Xray test plans, and Xray test executions, they off the shelf allow you to integrate all kinds of testing into a test execution and into a test plan. And in that example, again, we didn't get to see that level of detail, but that test summary report was a combination of manual testing, traditional manual testing, and automated testing, and unscripted exploratory testing. All of those things compiled into one test report. And at the technical level, that's very easy to do because to Xray, they're just test executions. And it doesn't matter what kind of execution it was. It's just a text execution. And so document generator and snapshots, both utilities can read that data and report on all of it together at once. That's one of the great powers of it.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Thank
but
you.
I want to just say that the juice there is to have your system set correctly. So you need to have your automatic tests integrated with Jira, and whatever automatic test platform you're using, if it is a Tosca or PyTest or whatever system you use, you need to set up the infrastructure so that when automatic tests are executed, the results come back into Xray. Xray is your source of truth. If the data is in Xray, then the report part is easy, exactly as Aaron mentioned. But you need to make sure that it's integrated, and we don't have time for that today. It's not the topic of this webinar, but I just want to highlight that this is a work that needs to be done on your side.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of resources within the Xray documentation that you can see how to integrate all these different tools. So just take a look into the documentation and you'll see a lot more information there. So thank you. Final question for today. We still have 1 minute. And someone said, you mentioned objective evidence a lot, but I think the concept of objective evidence is very subjective. Is there any useful guidance or suggestions on this? And to close out the webinar.
Yes, I can answer that from the life sciences perspective. When you look at the FDA guidance, you're right. Some of it is very vague. Some of it is not. The regulations themselves are very vague. The guidance around those regulations is a little bit more helpful. And objective evidence can be a lot of different things. To most people, it means screenshots.
Exactly.
To FDA, it does not necessarily mean screenshots at all. In fact, their guidance is to only use screenshots when necessary. So the stuff that we saw in that software test summary report, that was objective evidence. It's objective evidence because it's a system with timestamps. There were pictures on the runs. All of those things are objective evidence. Anything that just, like I said at the very beginning, it's receipts. Anything that can be a receipt of this is what we did, and you don't have to take my word for it. We have documentation that shows it, that any of that stuff can be objective evidence. System logs are objective evidence. Documents with signatures are objective evidence. There's a lot of examples of objective evidence. If you want the most modern guidance or thinking on this, go to the draft guidance on the computer software assurance from FDA, and
Yes.
that's the most modern, most current thinking where they do describe objective evidence in that.
Anything you want to add, Rina?
I just want to say that back to the automatic test, you need to, when you do the integration with automatic test, you need to somehow also attach the objective evidence from the automatic test, and it's oftentimes the system logs and sometimes screenshots that are automatically generated as well. I just warn, try not to attach videos. So recently I've seen with a couple of installations that they just thought that they will take the whole video of the session from the automatic test and attach to Xray and to Jira. It just drowning everybody with too much information. An auditor will not be reasonably be able to see exactly the thing that he requires there, and it just too much data.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much for giving some advice. Aaron, if you want to finish up.
I was just going to add that there's a lot to automated testing there with objective evidence. As a developer, I can say if your server, your CI server is controlled properly, you can leave a lot of the objective evidence on the CI server and reference it as long as it's controlled and you know that it'll be available during an audit. You can say reference build number 12345, and as long as you know that will be, as long as you have controls on your builds, then you can just reference that from your reports. I've done it both ways, and that way's a little bit easier if you can manage the controls.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for being here with us today. We reached the end of today's webinar. We hope you learned a lot from Aaron and Rina. A big thank you to both of you for sharing your expertise here and your years of experience. And yeah, thank you for attending. Keep an eye out for another email from Xray following up on this with a recording with additional resources that you will be able to download from both Aaron and Rina's presentations. And see you next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate being invited. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.